Hey guys, Kevin Goetz here with another free YouTube lesson, and today we finally get to talk about amp modeling because it looks like I finally got all these tech issues worked out, which I'm pretty proud of that. So first thing we always want to do when we're setting up a new tone is to check the gain on our interface. And the way to do that, you just fret an open power chord and chug it like that, and you're going to be watching the light on your interface, and you're going to look for clipping. And if you see red, dial back your volume. If you don't see red, you're good. You want to get it as loud as you can without clipping. And once that's done, that's when we can start setting up our tone. First thing we're going to add is pull in Lake Cab. It's free. All this stuff is free. These are the Redwirez Amp Impulses. They're all very good. I think they're the most lifelike I've heard. This is not displaying these values properly. They should all be 2.50. I don't know what these 500s are about. The first one, we have an SM7 on the cap edge, -0. Second, we have an R121 on the cap, -1. A U67 on the cap edge, -3. And an RE20 on the cap edge, -0. We also have a D6 on the back cab, -0. Pay attention to these delay values. They're actually kind of important for the tone. So 0, 1, 4, 0. What that does is it basically emulates what the mics would actually be doing with the distance values that are programmed for them. And the end result of that versus it just makes it sound more 3D. But it's mainly noticeable once we have our amp added, so let's do that. I like TSE X50. It's, again, the most lifelike I've come across. It may be that I'm just a PV fanboy and therefore gravitate toward PV, but does it really matter at the end of the day? So this is going to sound like this. Which is, in my opinion, still quite bad. We can do far better. So, let's do better. Let's put in a booster. See, in a real amp signal chain, the booster is something called a tube screamer. It's a pedal of sorts that basically saturates the tubes. It sculpts the mids and makes it sound good. However, we're not going to use a software tube screamer. They exist, like the TSE 808. We're going to use a very specific plugin, Solo C. Solo C was designed as an amp simulator, but if we set this properly, set it to clean, set your EQ values like this, master volume and input like this, it has the interesting effect of giving us basically a free gent tone. Let me play for you one more time without it. And with it, it gives us that kind of metallic quack that will basically allow your guitar to cut through a mix very, very well without overpowering it. I love that sound. Alright, but we can still always make it more lifelike. So let's actually go about, well, okay, first I want to add in a noise gate because the only downside to using Solo C is it does something weird to the gain staging to have two amp sims and we get that hiss that you're hearing in the background. Yeah, it's not good, that's not supposed to be there. So let's add in an instance of regate. And as you can see, I've got it set a little close, so on those long sustained chords, it actually starts triggering toward the end, which is actually not something we want. However, at the end of the chain, you can add another one, and then you can bring the threshold down a little further. So the instance of two noise gates actually allows you to get away with hearing more of the sustain. We're not going to worry about that right now. What we're going to do next is a plugin called Thunderkick. Oops, sorry, wrong folder. It's in the JS folder of Reaper. Now, Thunderkick is a sub-bass synthesizer. So, if I can make a point real quick. Right now, our palm mutes sound like this. That fizzing noise you hear is the noise gate tripping too early. Damn it. Much better. All right. And if we add Thunderkick, feel that? Now, that is not a setting we want. I want to move my shift up to, I think, 3. Which brings the bass... I mean, I honestly don't know what half these values do. I just play around with them. Except the effect dB. That's pretty obviously the actual volume. And we want to set it so we can just barely feel it adding some weight to our palm mutes. We do not want a lot of bass. The idea is to emulate the loud bass of a real amp with a mic slapped up against the grill. But a lot of the bass that we do have here is not going to stay. Next thing we're going to do is add a compressor. If you're into audio engineering, you've probably heard that you should never compress electric guitars. There is some truth to that, but we're not doing conventional compression for conventional reasons. There, okay. You see how the longer the chord sustains, it kind of swells? There. And the compressor volume cuts it. Okay, this is to imitate essentially the feeling of air pressure against a mic. That's why we have our attack and release both at 0, which is very unnatural, but we actually want the type of pumping that it creates because it makes you feel more of what a real amp and a real mic will make you feel. And finally, the last little trick that we're going to add here. Where is that? Yeah, Re-X Comp. It's a multi-band compressor. Now, what this is set to do is it will essentially it has the convenient effect of taming our low end, which is always nice when we've got Thunderkick set properly. Again, experiment with it and find a sound that you like for your own mix. I'm just showing you which plugins work, really. With the compressors, don't copy my threshold. That's set for my source audio, but you can copy the other values. I might want less taming on the highs. So what this is set to do, let me just sustain a note again. Look at how the compressor at different parts of the sound spectrum is changing the volume at different degrees. Real amps have something called a dynamic volume curve, where the speaker, it doesn't all drop off in the entire frequency spectrum at once the way a lot of free amp modelers do. It is instead set to drop off in waves, as I like to say it. It drops off in peaks. And we can emulate that. So here are the values we're using to do that. The first band is set at 60. All of these have a ratio of 2. Attack of around 60 and a release of around 110 on the first one. Second one set at around 180. Attack of around 60 and a release of around 25. This one's set at 10,000, but because of where the others are set, it's actually going to focus on around 2,000, which is the treble range. Attack of 5, release of 10. And the fourth band is set at around 13,000 with an attack of 2 and a release of 5. And just kind of copy it so you're getting gain reduction values similar to mine. So The first band is, you know, the first band's around 1 to 2, the second band's around 2 to 3, third band barely ever catches anything, and the fourth band's set to taste. It really just controls your highs. And of course, set all of these to taste. So because we have all these different ratios, or different attack and release times, it creates this very lifelike, breathing quality. And that, I think, is a lot of what gives us the sense of realism. But we're not quite done. See, we can always EQ our tone further to make it sit in a mix. So, let me actually show you guys some basic EQ while I'm at it. But I think this particular video has gotten kind of long, so stay tuned for that on Wednesday. In the meantime, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I really hope I was able to convey my points well enough. If there's anything you'd like to hear more about, leave a note in the comments. If you would like to help me out at all, you could like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, stay tuned for EQ on Wednesday, and until then, see ya!